Hey, and we're back. It's episode 2 of How's Your Soul podcast, where the only rule is you can't say I'm good. And today I'm joined by my good friend and family, Tony Tzar. And we're talking all about the concept of healing the healer. How are you, Tony?
Hello, Sydney. I am I would say I'm in a state
Okay.
of practicing. I I know, like, I'm so used
Right,
to saying
right.
good. and and then if it's not good, I'm not one to want to just trauma dump on someone, but uh I'm in a state of like a lot of things: gratitude, grace, um, learning, understanding. So all of those, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like those are intentional. You have to think about them. So that's where I come up with the word practicing. I'm in the state of practice. Practicing gratitude, practicing grace,
Yeah,
understanding, patience,
yeah.
all these things. And I'm also
Oh
sick. If
no!
anyone
I love
hears.
the owl. The owl's so
Yeah.
cute.
Mm, I was so good like 2 days ago.
Oh no. Okay, so for
Jesus.
people who don't know you, how would you describe Tony as a human, as an artist, as all the different things? Because that looks different depending on how people come to know you.
Um, I think for me, getting to know myself, I would describe myself as uh, very caring, very caring, and um, enthusiastic about art and enthusiastic about
Mm-hmm.
ascension. I feel like anytime I can offer like empowerment or betterment to any situation, um, I would definitely like jump at the chance. So yeah, caring and empowering and uh,
Yeah.
definitely empathetic. Um, yeah, and curious. I'm a very curious person. I think one thing that's a big attribute that I have
Mm-hmm.
is that I'm just curious. I want
Mm-hmm.
understanding of anything. Things that I don't understand, I want understanding of. Things that someone would be like repulsed by, or someone would be scared of, or whether it's a personality or
Right.
jumping out of a plane. I'm so curious to see what that like.
Mm-hmm.
All experiences I like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I
And
go for it. Now
as
I'm waiting for my
someone
third
who
jump.
knows you personally, and I think it's safe to say knows you pretty well, um, I totally agree with all of those things. Um, and heavy on the empathetic, and heavy on someone who is nurturing, someone who is supportive, someone who is honestly just like the term Father Earth comes to mind. How people always say Mother Earth, and just how, like, when I think of the earth, I think of someone or something, or
Yeah.
the entity that always gives, that always is there, that's always there to provide. But then at the same time, especially in today's society, the earth isn't necessarily always taken care of. And someone who has been
Mm,
watching your journey for the past, oh my goodness, how long have I known you now? Like 12 years, maybe. like
Yeah,
that.
close to
Yeah.
12 years,
Um,
definitely.
it's been very insightful to see how you invite experiences into your world, how you manage those experiences, and then if hurt, how you sometimes overcome them, sometimes heal from them, and sometimes just deal with them. Because all three of those look very different if you ask me. Overcoming versus healing versus just dealing.
Yeah,
And I think those three things
yeah,
there are three different stages. If you ask me, like it's like dealing,
yeah,
overcoming, and then the healing. And depending on the situation that we're all in,
yeah,
each situation can be dealt with or handled differently. Um, but I know
yeah.
the term empath is always thrown around, in society, and it's such a buzzword now. And I'm curious. Like, I have my personal perceived definition of what an empath is. Um, and I consider the word empath a noun and being empathetic adjective, but they're very two different things. Like, I think being empathetic is very situational. You can
Yeah.
be empathetic to a situation, but that doesn't make you an empath. When I think of somebody who is an empath, I think of somebody who is very intuitive and is in tune with people and their emotions, and on a deeper,
Yeah.
almost undescribable level. It's not just, it's beyond a gut feeling. It's beyond somebody just
Hmm.
being able to listen to their gut on a situational basis.
Yeah.
When somebody just knows, like, okay, I know that man cheating on me. That don't make you
Yes.
empathetic. That don't make you necessarily intuitive. You know what I mean? uh, but someone who is
Yeah.
an empath, they can
Yeah.
take on willingly and unwillingly, to their own personal demise, other people's emotions, other people's situations, good and bad. It becomes their own. And when I think of an empath, I think of you. I truly think that you are one of those people that is such. And knowing your journey, what I know of it, I think I know a healthy share of it, but knowing what I know of it, um, it hasn't
Yeah.
been easy, and I'm gonna let you touch on that for sure. Because even in your opening statement, when I asked you how are you, and you mentioned the whole concept of, if I'm not good, I don't want to trauma dump. Where does that come from? Where does that come from for you? Like, that comes from somewhere, and
Um.
the feeling of like you're dumping your traumas on someone. Because I can tell you right now, if you're talking to me, you're not dumping your traumas on me. Like, you know what I mean? But that feeling of, okay, I don't want
Right.
to
Right.
unload on the person I'm talking to. Where does that stem from for you?
It has more. It has more to do with. Um. I think the how
Yeah.
common that question is, and how much we don't really
Right.
mean to ask that question. Right. So, when it comes to trauma dumping, there are some people, even my friends, I ask them now, um, hey, I have a lot
Mm.
on my heart right now. Do you have
Yeah.
space? Do you have time, and do you have space for it first? And this all came from the self work and the help that I sought in the past
Mm-hmm.
4 years. I think uh, growing up, I went through a lot as a young child, and learning how to love in very difficult situations has put me in one of those like special places as a child, right? And so as a child, I became extremely emotionally intelligent, just informational wise. And so I had other people kind of define what empath is for me. So because I had a special mix of intuition and also just really like understanding human behavior, and um, even with my mom, she was like studying to be a doctor in psychology, and I would steal her books. And I'm
I love
talking
it.
about like at 11 years old, 10 years old even, and like read through books and be like, oh, okay. I'm thinking like I'm finding out the secrets, and so I would like apply it to life, and people would tell me like, oh wow, you're way beyond your years. Or, oh, like wow, like you're empath, you're empath, you're empath. So I thought my order, and I think this happens a lot for a lot of people who tend to have this gift, um, the order of understanding people's situations, understanding how to spot them, and then helping them is what an empath is. And until I, you know, went through some, no, let me rephrase that. Until that character and that knowledge that I built for myself upon the gifts that I had didn't work for me anymore, right? So it worked for me for a long time. I moved out here like homeless. I remember when I graduated at 16, and I went to DC high school. Graduated high school at 16. I went to DC and started like dancing and getting into the arts the way I wanted to. And then after that, I was like, yeah, I got to do it. I went to Florida to go to Full Sail University for music. And then I went to like, I got to go to LA. I got to move to LA. And I moved out here homeless. And, you know, a lot of people were like, oh my God, like, how are you doing this homeless? Like, aren't you worried? Aren't you sad? Aren't you? And I'm like, no, you just got to treat people good. And I understand people, and you know, the world, the universe gives it all back to me. And so you see it in books, you see it in self-help books, you see it on TV. So I'm like, yeah, this is working for me, until Mr. Save Everybody failed. And, you know, being that person to help everybody and think, I'm an empath, it was actually also distracting. Because we feel like, because it's put in, being an empath is put in such a like a amazing light, that we don't realize like, yeah,
Right.
but there has to be balance. You also have to understand how to help yourself. You can't find your gratification in helping everybody else around you and saving everybody else around you, because you choose to see yourself in everybody else around you. And once that started to happen, it was like, you know, on a roller coaster when it's like it's going over, it's like that was that moment. And then when I'm like, oh, okay, I get it.
Right.
It was like, and I really took some L's. And from that, I was like, I don't know what to do. I need help. So I went and started seeking help through one of my amazing mentors and people in my life and friends. His name is Dr. Damon Silas. He does a lot of trauma counseling, and he's written a book on it, and he's just amazing in different methods of therapy as well. And I started to learn about, like, you know, the individual that I am, and also how the world is. And so even though I care about people, everybody doesn't care the same, even though everybody has their way of loving, their way of caring. So I can't assume that when someone asks me, am I good, you want to hear everything. You want to hear about how my dog died. You want to hear about how my grandmother died. You want to hear about how, you know, I lost these many friends. Or you want to hear about how I went through this crazy situation. You want to hear about my suicide attempt. You want to hear.
And that's a lot.
That's not the case. Some people are just, yeah, it's a lot. And some people, you know, a lot of people are going through so many things. So things can be a trigger. So you can just mention like, oh, I'm good, you know, my dog died, and then the person in front of you can just start breaking out into tears. And then you're like, oh, maybe it was a bigger trigger for them than it was for me. So that's why I started to be, um, I guess, aware of, try to be more conscientious of like who has
Yeah.
time to hear it and who has the space to hear it. So if I know
Yeah.
them, that's the first gate. Second, ask them, do you
I
have
think
time? Do
that's
you have
huge. I think
space?
that's very. No, I love it. I love
The
it, and
long
that's why we're
answer,
here.
but
We're here for the deeper conversations, the
yeah.
meat and bones. Not just the superficial, and that's why I created this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's really the most important piece. But also having the willingness to even and the vulnerability to even want to open up. You know, because some people don't even like
Yeah.
they don't even care to even offer another alternative outside of the I'm good answer because they don't even want to tap into their own realities of
Yeah.
how they're feeling, or maybe they haven't even thought about how they're feeling, so they're just running on autopilot of I'm good. You know what I mean? But I think that's very, very, very
Yeah.
important. The after the just the awareness of, hey, who am I talking to? The situational awareness. Do you have the capacity to hold what my truth is in this current space? And I think I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
And I think that also brings up another buzzword, but another thing that I think people confuse for being an empath for. I think a lot of people, or not a lot of people, but I've seen a nice handful of people who claim to be an empath or highly, highly, highly empathetic, but they're actually just really used to and comfortable in trauma bonding situations. They seek the trauma in other people and they connect through that. And they think, oh, I understand what you're going through. I'm empathetic to what you're going through,
Mm-hmm.
But in all honesty, the reality of that situation could very much so be, is it really empathy or is trauma bonding your comfort? Because once somebody grows past the trauma of it and
Yes.
starts to go into their healing journey, those trauma bonding people fall off because I'm not only defined by my trauma anymore, you know? And so as you were talking,
Yeah.
that I've seen,
Yeah.
yeah, like
I've seen
that
that.
as you were talking, that word, that phrase has come up too in my
Yeah.
mind, like, so the difference, and it's so crazy because as you were talking, I pulled up what is an empath, and all of the resources are on health sites, not on dictionary sites. So, according to,
Huh.
yeah,
Huh.
isn't that crazy? So, according to Healthline,
Yeah.
um, it says, do you often feel deeply tuned into the feelings of people around you? Do crowds make you uncomfortable? Would you or the people closest to you describe yourself as a sensitive person? If so, you may be an empath. And there's a lot of people that are defining the difference between empathy and empath. Those people are doctors, are psychiatrists, are people that are in these health fields and health professions. And it says the term empath obviously comes from the word empathy, which is the ability to understand the experiences and feelings of others outside of your own perspective. A lot of people can do that. That's like the surface level. That's what empathy is. But being an empath
Yeah.
is beyond just being empathetic, like we talked about. So I'm not gonna go into the whole. It's a full blown articles, but I think it's important to make the distinction between the two as we, go further in our conversation. But being someone who has always been there for other people, what does it look like for yourself when you need help? How do you recharge, or have you figured that out? or what does it look like when you're going through something? Do you have other people? Do you feel like, I'm going to say, do you feel like you have other people that can hold space and give you what you need in the times where you feel like you're in need? Because I know that that's hard, for somebody who's always used to being there for other people to feel like, okay, can those same people hold space for me and have the tools to hold space for me in a way that I think I need?
I think that works in like hand in hand with magnetism. Um, the thing about it, like being empathic or being an empath, right? It could be your hero origin story or it
Talk
could be
about
your
it.
villain origin story. You know, you can feel ways for people, but doing things and stepping in, um, and and being the best empath and hero that you try to be, you can end up getting hurt because someone's not able
Mm-hmm.
to accept that love, right? Or someone's not able to accept the help, or even be able to see themselves, see the good in them that you can see in them. And in those cases, these people can hurt you like extremely bad. And then you have the choice to how you're going to react to that. So um I think throughout this life we all have different ways of reacting, and it all comes
Mm-hmm.
through like our development of self. But uh, the reason why I said it works through magnetism is because I think once you take a moment and definitely one of the many amazing tools that I've used is meditation. But being able to meditate and center yourself to the point where you can be as concerned with self and spirit and mind and God as you are
Mm-hmm.
with everybody else, that's when you really start to listen and listen to God, listen to the universe, and start to see what you really, really need to do. And usually, when you do that, a lot of people who only trauma bonded with you will start to
Mm-hmm.
fall off because now you're not providing what you always provided for them. They can't get that resource from you, and then it
Mm-hmm.
shows that there's no two-way. Then when you when these people are falling off, it's actually providing space, right? So you start treating yourself a certain way because you only have self at that moment. And at these moments, like you'll find like random people, next level, start coming into your life, or people who've always been in your life go, okay,
Right.
now do you see me?
Right.
And are able to give back that same love that you're giving to yourself because you have now you can meet other people at where they've seen you, and they can be ahead of the game. And when I say ahead of the game, they can be ahead of
Mm-hmm.
you of seeing you to where you are, right? Two people I
Oh.
consider in that zone is you, and there's also this girl Julia. And there's there's a phase of life where both of you guys like came in, and it wasn't because I reached out and I like called and said I need Julia, I need Sydney. It was like, okay, you know, and all you did was be yourself. But
Mm-hmm.
I heard you different. I heard Julia different, and I was like, wow, this whole time these people have been showing me the same love, and not even just the same love. It can be that deep, or it can be as deep as these people have always been showing up. It's like when I had my music video and I was like, I have all these things to do and all these hats to wear, and I need someone to share
Yeah.
it with. And you're like, sure, okay, let's go to this store, make a car, I'm gonna design your costume. And I became your assistant to my, design to my video. And I was just like, that was back then. It was like, oh yeah, awesome. But then, like nowadays, I can look back and be like, yeah, she's
Mm-hmm.
always shown
Mm-hmm.
up. Not for the parties, not for the good times, not for the um,
Mm-hmm.
celebrations. Always, you just showed up. Period. And the same thing with Julia. And Julia really came. She really like came to aid with sharing her, sharing more of herself. She's someone who's also gone through a lot of things, a lot of painful things, but didn't want to make that
Right.
bond on the like the trauma bond thing, and like
Right.
I'm just gonna get attention. Just like, yeah, you had a lot of people
Yeah.
around you. You had a lot of people around you. A lot of things that I saw, and I thought it was safe. But now that you're protecting
Yeah.
yourself, I feel safe in your space. And I think that happens a lot when it comes to magnetism. Once you start to pour that love back in and really trying to find the core of your light, you start to value it, and you start to protect it. And once you become protective of that space, then people who are also protective of their space feel comfortable enough to come into your space. And they, to me, in my experience as of now, because I don't know what's going to happen later, but right now, it's amazing. I feel like the level of
Yeah.
people around me have just
Yeah.
like risen. And I'm grateful for that. But it's only because I started
Mm-hmm.
seeking out tools to put myself on a higher level and empower myself the way I was so hungry and thirsty to do it for others. And that's all. I honor that old self,
Mm-hmm.
and I love him. I love old Tony. I love young Tony. Um, and I'm gracious to him, and I'm forgiving to him. Um, so it's really like a lot of times it's like we feel like we can go on, we move on from the old self, but I
Yeah.
feel like it's more of an expansion. You know, you can understand old self, but don't forget
Yeah.
him. Don't forget all the things he's been through. Don't forget certain stories that make him him, that make him be able
Right.
to relate to other people's stories. But also, let's
Yeah.
expand. We're
Yeah.
not going to
Yeah.
have to stay
And
there. you know
for people that are listening, watching, um, that may identify with your story and what you told of it, what are some of the tools that you've learned, going from someone who could sometimes over provide for people that didn't want it, or feel like you were showing up for people that maybe couldn't see the value in it, or you know I'd say pouring into others more than pouring into yourself, all those things. What tools have you learned to get you from old Tony to new Tony that you found most helpful?
um there's different personalities
Let
of
them
me who
all
wants to answer
answer.
the
Let them
question
all
differently,
answer.
but so the first one is like loving and caring about people who can't see themselves the way you see them is like trying to like
Yeah.
drag a rock
Yeah.
uphill or a boulder uphill. It's like you can support someone, and it's easy to support, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
not easy to support. Sometimes it's weight. But as long as they want to move one
That
foot
part.
in front of the other, it's fine. As long as they want to move, they want to do things for themselves, it's fine. But if you find yourself pouring so much into someone else, into all your conversations about how you want them and them and them and them to be better, uh, I would say like take some time to reflect on what you
Mm.
see of yourself
Mm-hmm.
in them, because most of us are we're only like loving and caring and reaching out through relation. You know, we all want the underdog to win. We all want the like a lot of us, if we see like I was a fat kid, right? So when I scroll through IG, or I'm watching someone in dance classes, and it's like the fat
Mm-hmm.
kid, all the other kids were like, and they
Right.
going out there and they
You
killing it. I'm rooting for
identify.
them. I'm like, I'm biased. I am. I don't. Yeah, it's just because it's my natural spirit. And I
Mm-hmm.
see everyone and I celebrate everyone,
Yeah.
but I'm like, I see me and you know, and we do that whether it's good or whether
Yeah.
it's not so
Right.
good. I don't really believe in good and bad, but whether it's carrying the energy to move forward or whether it's
Right.
carrying an energy that's going to hold you back, we still
Mm-hmm.
see that in other people. And even with me, like I went through like the most painful experience as a whole, um, spiritually and emotionally painful, uh, like in the past 4 or 3 years, and when people started to like when my pain was made public or whatnot, or when and
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that through me, when I was expressing my pain or expressing my anger or my disbelief, um, there's a lot of people who came, you know, who wrote me and like, yeah, you're gonna be okay, you're gonna be fine, da 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 da. And at first, it all looked the same, and it was all given like thank you. But then, the further I got into it, certain people started relating to me in certain ways, which I couldn't relate because what they saw, what they
Mm.
experienced, was not my case. And then I started to realize, like, wow, like people just they're rooting
Mm-hmm.
for what they
Mm-hmm.
see in them, and
Yeah.
it's no different from hate. People are angered by
Yeah.
things they see in other people that they see in themselves, or they can't fix in
That's
themselves, or
good.
that trigger themselves. So yeah, and so I don't know. My advice for them is to really just like find that time for self, as like hard as it may be, because most people who care so much about other people
Yeah.
have a very hard time being alone,
Yeah.
and I was one of them. I know you remember I had a house in Sherman Oaks, and as lovely as the space was,
Uh-huh.
alone and peaceful, and after a while I shut it down and like let it be my meditation space, because I just was not feeling the energy. But like I would like have my sage and my palo santo and my my incense, my essential oils, and
Yeah.
just make the space a safe space, and
Right.
and then invite
Right.
everybody in to feel
Which
safe.
basically offset
Not
all of the
realizing
work you
that
just did. I remember the first.
all the
I remember the
work
first
I
time
did
I
to fill
came
that
over.
space. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
would
remember
feel
the
that
first
space
time I came
every
over, and I
morning,
was just like,
right?
he leaves
Go
his
ahead.
door unlocked, and anybody could just walk in. That's weird. But okay, it's not my house. I'm not gonna judge. But I was like, but it made sense
Mm-hmm,
for
mm-hmm.
who you were then, and who you were to everybody else then.
Yeah, it fulfilled me. Mm-hmm. It fulfilled me. I had like my sewing workshop in the back. I had the recording studio in my bedroom, which I just let anybody anywhere. I had my gym in the garage. We used to
Yeah.
work out and dance and cipher outside in the backyard in the garden. I had the living room where sometimes we'd cipher or just watch things and screen things. The front room, which John gifted, we use as like
Yeah.
his like that was his space. That was his studio for like editing, his editing bay or whatnot. But yeah, I thought like I never had a place like this that I could
Mm.
go to growing up, and I wanted people to always feel like they have a space to be safe. There was people who didn't have places to go. So certain people would call it the hostel. If you didn't have a place to go, if you needed a
Right.
place to stay, everybody
Right.
would be like, "Oh, check with Tony." And it was a burden I was willing to bear for a while, but
Yeah.
after a while, I was like, okay. And then there were friends who would call 3 a.m. at night, like, "Hey, we're not done. Like, we still want to like have a place
Yeah.
to talk and drink wine. Can we come through?" And I'm like, "Sure, please come
I
through."
am wiping the crust out of my
But
eyes.
having that space, right? Yeah, having that space, it was fulfilling for a while because I felt important
Mm,
through being able to help other people
mm.
feel
That's the
something.
key word right there.
But the thing is, yeah, I felt important through that. And then when they when I went through something extremely challenging, I was like,
Mhm.
where
Mhm.
are these people? Where are the people that like are steady over asking for help, getting inspiration, getting free lessons, free studio time?
Mhm.
Where are these people? And then even furthermore, I know there are people who like there was like people who were encouraging me once like somebody put out some type of statement that was very unclear, and then people started making their own assumptions. And there were people who hit me up and was like, "Yes, okay, you should just like we know you. You're so true to your spirit. You should make this statement. You should make this statement." And I go, "Okay," and I make a statement. I send it to them, and they're like, "Yeah, but even get more empathetic. Even get more like like you don't even need the angry or the like no resistance in it. Just like like what we read right now is someone who they people need to see what accountability in a leader looks like." And I'm like, okay.
Hmm.
And I was like, and they said like, "Yeah, this is perfect." And I remember when they said like, "This is perfect," I was crying. I didn't know why I was crying, but I was crying because I just felt like this is weird. Like I'm hurt. I make the statement, and then right after that, people who did that, one of them called me and was like, "I'm just letting you know I was in this other conversation," and they were saying like, "Your house was the party house. It was the drug house." And I'm like, "How are you the one? You two were the ones who told me to make a statement that you're gonna go around the other line and get into a conversation has to do with something that has never happened.
Interesting.
The party house, the this house." And it's crazy because I asked questions. I asked my father, um, who I was around at the time, who was a minister, and amongst many other things, and showed me he is a big like Christian believer, and he showed me verses of where like when you do good, like many people, especially the energy of
Mm.
evil, will always want to perverse it and make it something that it's not. And the more I started to read about things, I was like, oh, as hurtful as this experience is, this is not the first and won't
Mhm.
be the last. This happens all the time. And that's why there are many, and I think about this as many religions have their, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Muslim, whether you're a Christian, whether you're, you know,
Mhm.
a spiritualist, most books of belief or spirituality
Yeah.
have these like guidelines and have like accounts and things to help you know that like this happens all the time. That's why this book is here to help you understand how you need to protect yourself and how you need to, how all these tools can be
Mhm.
used in your favor. And after that, I started to realize it takes me back to like, okay, so I have some work to do on myself. Because one thing I did realize in counseling, uh, he was like, I've known you for a long time. You've been through a lot of stuff. Like I've known you since you were a kid. Like you've been through extreme things. And he was like, some of these people, and I was like, yeah, I agreed with him. He was like, yeah, some of these people, that you love hard, and I can tell you love hard. I'm like, yeah. He said, okay. And he was speaking about someone specifically, and he said, like, so how can I give you like a hard pill to swallow? And I said, yeah. He said, now, what makes you think that
Mm.
you can play God and guard and prevent this person or these people of experiencing the bad
Mhm.
things that they're
Mhm.
supposed to
Yeah.
experience to make them better? And that was the moment in therapy where I was like, oh, because I had the belief if my intentions were good
Right.
and everything is great and I'm doing this for the better good and I'll
Right.
take the pain, I'll take the blame, I'll take this.
Right. And you can
That
actually
don't help nobody.
sometimes cripple them from their own character development. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, enabling them. Yeah. An enabler, and I learned in counseling, an enabler can be just as damaging as an abuser. And that, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that hit me hard. And so the thing is, like, the way accountability works, because
Yeah.
that's another word that everybody loves to use. Accountability. I want to hold them accountable. And hold people accountable. Accountability is something that is of a self
Okay.
process. Because what accountability looks like to most people is like pain and suffering for all the stuff that they projected in their past or things that happened to them that they want to place on someone else because
Mm-hmm.
they felt powerless. And so they're going to take this out and project this onto someone else. And the way our society works with social media, it's kind of crazy now. But accountability is definitely a self process. It's definitely a person themselves saying like, how do I want to improve my world, even if they seem
Mm-hmm.
squeaky clean or they seem perfect. How do I want to better my life and my world, and you know, live a better life for myself and
Yeah.
for the people around me, and whatever that looks like for you is your path. We have so many self-help books, but in reality, some of the best ones I've read are the ones who say, hey, this is a big book of I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm gonna let you know what worked for me. And those are the ones that really, same thing with like listening to Abraham Hicks, for her to say we feel, because she sees herself as a counsel, or
Right.
they see themselves as a counsel. um like, I listen to the things they have to say and I'm like, wow, it seems so simple, but that's because that's the only
Mm-hmm.
way it can be the most relatable
Simple.
for things to
Yeah.
be
Yeah. Yeah. And
simple.
I think that's such
Simple.
a interesting and not as common take on accountability, because when you think of like the concept of people saying, oh, I have to hold you accountable or others accountable, to a degree, if you look at it through that lens, it's like, well, what makes you judge and jury of how someone else's actions, thoughts, processes, all those things? Who's to say that, you know, who's to
Yeah.
say, period, that. Um, and
Yeah.
I think, there is, because everything is such a gray area. What is right to some people may not be classified as right to others. What is morally
Yeah.
sound to one person may seem completely like off the rails to somebody else. And I think the biggest overlying concept should just be, how can I be the best version of me, for myself first. Yeah.
And that's always going to be your story.
Yeah.
Yeah. First, that can't come through anyone else's satisfaction of your
Yeah.
state of being, right? Some people, they want to see other people suffer. I even saw something today on social media talking about, I think they were talking about Chris Brown, but they were like, he ain't even suffered.
Well,
He's
who's
just
to
out there living his
say?
life, and it's like,
Right. Right.
how do you know? Like,
Right.
how do you know? And I'm pretty sure through my knowledge of things,
Yeah.
like this man has suffered. I've seen I've seen like what it is to even
Yeah.
just live a celebrity life.
Yeah.
Like, I've been around them, and that
And
already is suffering to
I
me.
think
Like,
I
they
think the
go
core
through a
question
lot
is,
of
I think the core
friction
question
and not
is,
having
how do you
freedom.
define suffering? And that's very subjective too, because what's suffering to one may be
Yeah,
not suffering to the other.
yeah, because
uh,
yeah, people will be the first. I saw so many people to like jump at the opportunity for content when someone loses their
Mm.
life through suicide, and people will go, "Oh, check on your friends and do this." And I saw people write the most elaborate posts, and I'm like, "That's crazy," because you definitely are someone who doesn't check on people who you called friends. There are people who have called me friends and not even didn't check on them, but like would exacerbate issues and problems off of just wanting to look like they're on the right side of, you know, I don't know, of social media.
Uh,
They're on the right side of, because
yeah.
it can't be. It's not like on justice or something. We have people set in the system. We have a whole justice system. Not to
Right.
say the justice system is
Right.
right, but that's a whole other podcast.
Right.
But I'm just saying we have people who do this for a career, for a job. So you on social media, like, what are you doing? What are we doing? Even if it comes to the point of like people chastising or covering stories or saying, I'm an advocate now. There's people who actually have gone to school to understand how to do this in the right way. There's people who have degrees who understand how to address this issue in the right way. But we have so many people now who feel like, I'm a self-appointed doctor, I'm a self-appointed physician, I'm a self-appointed therapist, I'm a self-appointed this and that, and
To
have no
that,
idea what's going
to
on
that, I
and are
will
causing.
say, it's one thing to, have some personal experience in a situation, but being able to
Yeah.
convey, some empathy, circling back around, being empathetic to a situation, or being able to relate to a situation does not mean you can effectively does not mean you can effectively, talk about it in a way that does more good than damaging. You know what I mean? And I think that's where the educational
Yeah.
component comes in, because it's not saying that you don't have the credibility. Like, I'm not saying you don't know what you're talking about and what you haven't learned is true or what you haven't experienced is right, but that doesn't mean you have the tools to effectively communicate maybe said experience for some people, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but all that to say,
Yeah.
as someone who's been through a lot, gone through a lot, is in a season of practicing, what they've learned, what they're growing through. At the end of the day, in today, what is today, February 19th of 2023, how's your soul doing in this current season?
Um, my soul feels
Mm.
like a warrior. My soul feels like I find myself
Yeah.
being proud of myself a lot more in such a different way. You know, we will always have
Yeah.
things like judgment. We'd say like, "Oh, be free of judgment. Judgment's not
It
good." Da da
is.
da da. But yeah, it's a process, and it's always going to be there, and we're always going
Right.
to have the court of public opinion. You know, but when you do the self work to gain the tools that you need for yourself to get through, man, man, do the blessings
Yeah.
flow in such different ways too. You know, like there'll be days where I feel very down on myself because I'm monetarily not at the place I used to be because I've taken so much damage in my career from the things I've been through. And then but I have to tell myself, keep going, keep going, keep going. But then on those days, for some reason, I'll get like 3 or 4 messages from people all around the world who are like, "Hey, thank you for getting up and keep going. Like, I'm from Africa and I watch you all the time, and like it makes me proud to be like a
Yeah.
young black man growing up. And you, like, when you dance, you speak my language, and I'm like, woo. And then there's other people who are like, hey, like, you saved my life. And um, you're encouraging more and more for me to just be myself, and keep going with the things I've been through. There's parents who have hit me up who have said, like, I don't know, you know, what you need, but I'm here, and I don't know what's going on, but you've been an angel to my son, or you've been such a help to my daughter when she was going through her, and when I get these messages, I'm just like, oh, this reminds me that it's
Mm-hmm.
more than opportunity, more than fame, more than Instagram or TikTok posts. There's a real life
Yeah.
being lived out here, and there are real
Yeah.
lives being touched out here. And if that's the focus, if that's the reward, I mean, that's good. Everything else, is something for me to work on, and also it's
Right.
also a path that I'm being guided on. So, I'm not going to sit here and judge my path too early, but sometimes we get down on ourselves, sometimes we do. And to be able to, like, know that who we've been and who we are being is actually something that is still empowering, still fulfilling what I'm supposed to fulfill. It's magical. And also just, like, not believing stories in my head because of the anger
Mm-hmm.
and evil that has come my way. Like,
Yeah.
you saw me when I got back, and it
Yeah.
was it was giving hermit. Like, I didn't want
Yeah.
to see anybody from the dance. I didn't want to
It
see
was giving
anybody
hermit
from
for
nowhere.
real.
And after a while, yeah, and after a while, it was giving
Yeah.
like, yeah, you gotta get over it sometime. And so even just last weekend, going into this bar that, I've been heavy in my production, vocal production, music bag, and I went into this bar, and, you know, invited by, my producer friends or my music friends. And I get there, and the first person I see is a dancer, and then the second, and then the third, to go around the corner and find out it's like a dancer night that invited all dancers there. And I was like, oh my God! And I can play with it now because I'm at a place where I can.
Yeah.
But anxiety is a real thing, and for me, anxiety is like a real thing. Like, I get anxiety attacks. It's gotten really bad, and I've had to get help with that. But hey, it's a battle that I am winning,
We love
so
that.
I'm not going to harp on it. But to go into that bar and to see them, and just to be, and for all of the dancers that were there to just be like showing love or giving like praise or love, it's like, oh, okay, all I had to do is step out. That's all I had to do. Love is always going to be there, because love is something that you've always shown and already shown. And people go through phases. So I feel like, that makes me feel like a warrior. When I came back home, I was just like, it was a good night, I did it. And sometimes you will encounter people who are angered by situations or are going through their own thing. But still, even how I deal with those things now, I feel like a warrior. I feel very,
And I'm proud
very
of
proud of
you.
myself. And I want, thank you. I want to encourage a lot of people to work on themselves. Like, regardless of what they're going through, regardless if you feel like the whole world's against you, work
Yeah.
on yourself. I don't know every path. I don't know how it'd be if, you know, I don't know. I just don't know. But I do know that I thought I lived in a twilight zone. I know I experienced something that was so surreal for me to be someone who, for years, have been out here for decades now, showing love and giving classes for free and giving spaces and clothes and cooking for people. like maybe twice or three times every month, especially if they have no family or no place to be. Like, how can something like this happen to me? But it's not about that. It's about your journey and you understanding what you need to
Yeah.
learn from and moving on, and understanding that that moving on alone is still going to affect people who look up to you, people who have a story similar to you,
Yeah.
people who see themselves in you, because we're all, once you get past the me, I self work, then you
Right.
get to the power of we. And then when you get to the power of we, there's something else
Yeah.
after. There's always something else afterwards for growth. And I'm ready and curious for all of that. But I do want to encourage everybody just to do whatever you need to do to work on yourself. But like giving up, it is an option, but
Yeah.
it should not
It
be.
shouldn't be the option you
You
choose.
know,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be the
Yeah.
option you choose.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate
It
you
shouldn't be.
sharing with me, with the community that I'm creating, being as authentic and honest about your journey and what you're growing through. And I'm glad to see you coming out on the other side stronger than where you were and not choosing the option
Thank
to
you.
give up.
And may I say, knowing you, even though you're not making this podcast about you, uh, the same, and being around you, and I've even told your mother this, like being around you in your time of dismay and confusion and just grief and strife, and to see how you handle it was definitely contributing to my spirit and
Thank
my
you.
growth and my strength.
Thank
And
you.
I am so proud of you. And yeah, warrior spirits
100%.
on the rise.
100%. So here's to the healings
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
healers. And I appreciate you and I love you so much. Thank you for joining
Love you
me
too.
on episode 2 of How's Your
My pleasure.
Soul?
Yeah.
Oh
Now I need a
yeah,
cup. I
How's Your
just got it
Soul?
buzzed before the
Tumblers
hour.
are now available via Facebook, Instagram shop, and on my website. Get one, get one, get one, and more merch coming very soon. Until next time.